Welcome to It Was Almost Real, the Pro Wrestling History Podcast, episode 41. And if you're listening to this on the day it's released, most of you, this will be 2024. If you listen to it when it first comes out in the morning and you are in Australia or Japan, it could still be 2023. But welcome to a new year, and joining me in studio is, of course, Dangerous Dan, as usual. And I'm also joined by both sons, Caleb and Trey are here. And as usual, I say that, it's two Zimmermans too many. I think today it's three Zimmermans too many. But we have in studio one of my two favorite Zimmermans, and that is my oldest grandson, Solomon. Yep. Connor's been here a couple of times, but now we have Solomon. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Good job. You got four more.
It only took me Culver's to get him to do that much.
Oh, yeah.
So, you want to watch Pink Panther while Papa smartens these marks up?
Yes.
Okay. You guys want to put bets on how fast we'll lose that Australian and Japanese audience, too, by
No.
the way? Because I'm pretty sure we've lost a good other margins.
No.
We haven't offended them yet.
Not yet. No.
We're working on it.
All right.
So, I want to go into a couple of updates. And then I'm going to cover the main topic. But for you, since you had asked about this last time, something I actually learned researching the new book on Ed Strangler Lewis kind of goes into what you would ask about, because you said you never heard me talk about the double crossing of the Goldust Trio.
Yeah.
And actually, I covered that in one of the episodes Uncle Dan and I did, but to not chew our food too often, just to kind of give a brief summary of how that happened and how that leads into what I just discovered. The Goldust Trio in 1925 was the most dominant group in professional wrestling, and it was Ed Strangler Lewis who was the world champion. Billy Sandow was his manager, and Joseph Toots Mondt was sort of Sandow's promotional partner and Ed Strangler Lewis's training partner. And Strangler Lewis said there was only two people that he believed could beat him in a legitimate contest. One was Joseph Toots Mondt, and the other was Stanislaus Zbyszko, who at that point in time was in his mid-40s, but Lewis still thought that he could give him a go and could put him into some danger.
Right.
And what happened in 1925, and what was the double crossing of the Goldust Trio, Billy Sandow, Lewis had held the title for 2.5 years, and Sandow wanted to put it on somebody else to try to generate some more interest. And Lewis was getting ready to go to Europe anyway. And so while he was in Europe, he wanted to put the title on a newcomer. And the newcomer he put on, who was a big star, and in the year prior as they built him up, would routinely draw 10 to 15,000 fans to the matches in Kansas City, and that was a Nebraska football player named Big Wayne Munn. He was 6'5", and he was 265 pounds when 265 pounds was a huge person.
But not a Cornhusker. He did not go to the U of N. So.
Yes, he did.
I asked you if he was a Cornhusker, and you said no.
No, Munn was a Cornhusker. I forget who you asked me was a Cornhusker, and I said no. He was a Kansas guy.
Oh.
But
okay.
Oh, no, Joe Stecker. You asked me about Stecker. Stecker was not a Cornhusker.
Okay.
He never went to University of Nebraska. But Munn did.
Oh, okay.
But Stecker could wrestle. Munn couldn't wrestle his way out of a wet paper bag. And that was the problem, was Lewis and Mondt did not want to put the title on Munn because they said anybody with the barest wrestling knowledge is going to beat him. He's a big guy, but he doesn't know how to wrestle. And so Sandow said, don't worry about that. I will only put him in with people we trust, which is actually what would cause the Goldust Trio to break up, because Mondt and Lewis were still sore, particularly Mondt, that Sandow went ahead and put the belt on Munn when they told him not to do it. It was a big mistake. And for the first 3 months that Munn held the belt, it did work out, because Sandow would put him with people they trusted. Well, one of the people they trusted was Stanislaus Zbyszko, who did lose, put Munn over twice.
Papa, you must have talking.
I'm going to do a lot of talking on here, buddy.
I'd grab your game, buddy.
Yeah, I'd watch Pink Panther, because Papa's going to do a lot of talking.
I'll tell you what a podcast is after we're done.
Papa loves you.
I of you too. I think they will hear that.
Do you think they'll hear that?
Oh, yeah.
So, to go back to that, they book a match in April of 1925 in Philadelphia between Zbyszko and Munn.
Right.
And Zbyszko shoots on Munn and defeats him legitimately. And when this match was booked, Lewis, I don't think he was still in Europe. I think he was back. But for whatever reason, neither Lewis nor Mont was in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And Sandow wasn't there. He had sent his brother, Max Baumann, there. And Baumann tried to talk to Zbyszko. Zbyszko would have no part of it. Legitimately beat Munn and took the title. Which would cause lots of problems for the next 3 years because of political machinations and everything. Munn was still recognized as a champion in Illinois and Michigan, even though he had lost.
Oh, that's right. That's when the states couldn't decide who they...
Right.
So,
And
Illinois is one guy, Missouri's another guy, so if you go across the river, you got
Yeah.
a different champion.
yeah, because the states recognize different guys. Zbyszko was recognized primarily by Pennsylvania and New York and all of the groups associated with them, which I think Missouri was one of the ones that recognized. And Zbyszko immediately dropped the title to Stecker in St. Louis. So they had the matches in May on the same day, and Munn dropped the title back to Lewis in Michigan. Zbyszko drops the title to Stecker, which was always the plan when he double-crossed him, in St. Louis. And both of those matches drew, I think, 19,000 and 17,000 fans, somewhere around there, which were huge crowds for that time. But that's the last time they would draw a crowd like that for 7 or 8 years until Londos emerged in New York in the early 30s. And wrestling really was down in 26 and 27 because of this divided title. And Stecker, because the people that they all were in the conspiracy with all started trying to double-cross each other too.
Yeah.
Stecker basically quit wrestling because Bowser tried to double-cross him in Boston by putting Joe Malkowitz in against him, who was a shooter, and Stecker not knowing it. Stecker just walked out of the ring and left.
Yeah.
But then Pesic went into business for himself. John, the Nebraska Tiger Man Pesic, was a shooter and hooker. Not quite on the level of Lewis, but very, very close.
Yeah.
And I don't think quite on the level of Stecker, but Stecker trusted him. Pesic had put him over twice already that year.
Yeah.
So he lets Pesic put a double arm wrist lock on him after he'd already dropped a fall to Pesic. And Pesic cranked it for real. Was going to break his arm, and he submitted. But even though he submitted,
Hey, can I have my water, please?
You sure can, baby.
even though he had submitted,
I think he'll
the referee disqualified
That's
Pesic.
funny, right?
Oh, yeah.
He disqualified Pesic for using dirty tactics, even though the fans knew that he hadn't used any dirty tactics, and the fans rioted. But after that, Stecker wouldn't wrestle anybody. So he basically put his version of the title in mothballs for a year and a half. Lewis couldn't draw the crowds he had before because nobody saw him as a legitimate champion because he beat Munn, who had already been beat by Zbyszko.
Somebody help.
In 28, they have a match between Stecker and Lewis.
Here it goes.
And that match unifies the title. It was in St. Louis as well. And it started out, I believe, as a shoot, a legitimate contest, and ended as a work.
Yeah.
In the first fall, Stecker realized he could not beat Lewis. There is a conversation, the newspapers talk about, they have a conversation in the ring. Stecker gets pinned a few minutes later. They come out after the intermission. Lewis lets Stecker beat him in like 20 seconds. But then for the third fall, Lewis never let Stecker get near him. Stecker went along with it and lost to him. But Lewis wasn't going to take any chances on a double cross. He made sure that Stecker was not in a position to double cross him if that was his intent.
Yeah.
So I believe it started as a shoot and ended as a work. So why is all of that germane? Until last night.
The Germans don't have nothing to do with it.
Germane.
Oh.
Look.
Until last night. We'll have to find those later. So until last night, I thought that Lewis and Zbyszko wrestled for the first time in 1921 when Zbyszko came back from Europe. I was wrong. Zbyszko and Lewis wrestled for the first time in Lexington, Kentucky in March of 1914, right before Zbyszko went back to Europe because he couldn't get another rematch with Frank Gotch.
Oh.
Really?
And after beating Aberg in that Greco-Roman match. So, I have to, that's what we'll talk about as our main topic of conversation for the next podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But you always learn something when you go into these projects, and that's one I had no clue about before. Maybe somebody else that's studied Kentucky in this time period knew about it. I've never read about it anywhere.
Now, did Zbyszko go back to Europe at the outbreak of World War I?
Yes, and he joined the Polish army.
To fight for the Polish, and that's what I was going to ask, if he went back far that.
Yeah, and he was a prisoner of war and everything.
Ah.
If he thought he was going to get a match with Gotch, he probably would have stayed. When he realized a match with Gotch was not forthcoming, and he beat Aberg on the way out, but Gotch is who he wanted.
Yeah.
That's why he went home and fought.
But
in
Gotch
World
was
War I.
like...
He had retired a year before, and he would not wrestle Zbyszko for 3 years.
Yeah.
Zbyszko knew he wasn't coming out of retirement to wrestle him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he does go and joins the Polish army. He's a prisoner of war. He doesn't get back to the United States in 1921. But so I'm going to talk about that topic for our next podcast because you always learn new things or unlearn things you thought you knew every time you go into one of these projects.
Right.
So, and it is an interesting match. And I'll answer whether I think it was a work or a contest. But
it's got to
stay tuned.
Yeah, it's got to be fun redacting stuff from your book because I know you will go back and
I
change
don't.
stuff.
Well, I don't have to change that because I never wrote that was the first time. But if I did, I would have. I would have had to go back, take that out.
I know you've done
and
it
then
before.
and then republish that book. So if there's an obvious flaw in one of my books or something that I thought and I know differently now, I have to go back and change it. I can't just because people read these books at any time along the. So it doesn't matter that in 2014 when I published that book, I thought this, or 2016 when I published that book, I thought this. If there's an obvious mistake, I have to go back and fix it. And you're right, I've done that a couple times now.
Well, I mean, it's...
But I never wrote that was the first time they met, so I don't have to change it.
Right.
I mean, that's the integral move, is to change it. You don't want to spread misinformation.
You'd be surprised at how many people, though, are lazy or just don't care, and they just they don't do stuff like that. And I think that is a complete and total lack of character.
Yeah.
I would never do that with people that read my books. And like I said, now I can research the things that I really want to research because I love my day job. So
Yeah.
But I do have something since the two of you are on here, and Trey's about to fall asleep over there.
What's going on?
No, he's
You don't
not.
like Stanislaus Zbyszko, man? Come on, wake up. Come
He's
on.
not going to sleep. They and Papa.
Solomon, that is what we call hyperbole. He's exaggerating.
But
Stop answering.
you guys might be surprised to know this. I am starting to fall out of love with MMA.
Huh?
Really?
Interesting.
Is it just... well, just tell me what it is.
Well, it's a combination of things, really.
Yeah.
It's one, now you have a card every single weekend, which is not easy to keep up with. But a lot of the big fights that they used to have, a lot of the big fights lately have been falling through.
Yeah.
And you have just such a... It's an oversaturation with the amount of cards that they have. It's hard to keep up with all the fighters. And a lot of the fighters that are champions, I do not like.
Really?
So I have nothing against Alex Pereira, but he just won the lightweight championship. But he got knocked out by Israel Adesanya when he was the middleweight champion.
Yeah.
The heavyweight champion is John Bones Jones, who great fighter, but not a great human being. Lightweight is probably my favorite, and that's Islam Makhachev. But that's one of the other things that I'm kind of falling out of love with MMA is there seems to be much more of an emphasis on stand-up anymore.
Yeah.
Because Dana White and them want exciting fights to bring in the casual fans. So it seems like if you put on an exciting fight and you stand and you get your brains beat out, that's who gets the fight of the night bonuses and all that instead of the people who put on a grappling clinic.
So once again, the freaking bigwigs or whatever are ruining a sport again, just like Taekwondo and Judo.
It's just
Olympics did Taekwondo and Judo, but it's kind of the same concept.
It's the
what
same
they
problem.
feel
They're
is
changing
exciting.
the rules to try to make it more exciting for people watching, and it ends up making it way more boring and way more complicated for the actual fighters.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think they're catering more to the casual fan than they are the hardcore fans, as yourself was.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember, UFC 1. It was a once-a-year thing, or maybe once every 6 months. It was a big pay-per-view. Everybody got together, and you watched Royce Gracie just, stretch a guy for 3 rounds on the mat. It was...
It's the same thing with everything I see, something gets successful and they think, well, how can we keep this going? And they're like, well, we need to rebrand or refresh for casual or newer audiences, and that is always the death of your brand.
And it really sucks because if you want to see like stand-up fights or something, you should be going to watch boxing. Although they rigged the judges on that.
Yeah,
well,
and nobody watches it, but they do have kickboxing, glory kickboxing, and that. And it's not like I dislike stand-up. I dislike the emphasis on only wanting to see stand-up.
Yeah,
I don't want to see a kickboxing match between 2 jiu-jitsu champions.
Yay.
Well, that's what it is. It's like, instead of building off of what they've already built, they try to just rebrand everything,
Mm-hmm.
I go to this thing for this. I don't go to it for this.
Right. I go to a ZZ Top concert to hear ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Not to hear, Zamfir and his magic pan flute.
The biggest offender of this is McDonald's. Do you remember the old McDonald's with the nice, colorful red roof and everything was nice and pleasant?
Yeah.
Have you gone in there now? It's like a depressed teenager is running the place. It's beige. It looks like a cafe where nobody's having fun.
That's a weird
sucks.
But yeah,
It's all neutral tones now, no fun, just...
It's like a lot of the
Please
churches,
use
too.
the kiosk. Well, I don't want to use
It's like
the
a lot of the
kiosk. I
churches,
want to
you had
talk to a
those-
human being and be done with this already.
Well, that's what kind of hecked me off the last time I went to Steak and Shake.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, use the kiosk here, because
Yeah.
we don't have waiters and waitresses anymore.
Would you like to move over and I'll go back there and cook my own food too?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's... Now, I tell you what, I have read several reports,
Yeah.
because we touched on this on our last podcast about the self-checkouts.
Mm.
They are starting to cut back on the self-checkouts and putting more cashiers.
That's good.
Dollar General, Target, and even Walmart has started it in New Mexico.
Good for New Mexico.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully it'll
Move
reach
up
world.
north.
Hopefully it'll reach worldwide. Now I know that you don't mind doing the self-checkout thing. Me being an old man, I do have a problem with it.
I mean, that's fine.
Hey,
I feel like it should
I'm
be
3
balanced.
years older than you, so what's that old man stuff?
Well, you don't like it either, so.
No, I don't like that, but it's not because I consider myself an old man.
And I don't want cashiers and all that to be replaced like waiters and waitresses. I think it's good to have it as an option for people who do use it like me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no. Like Dad said, because I still remember that one day we took Solomon in, and that was the first day you used the kiosk, and you sat there for 5 minutes trying to make your order, and you kept yelling, "I don't work here," at the kiosk as you're messing with it. Yeah.
Well, it's like earlier this morning I had to go to one of our local food stores to pick up some refreshments, and I only had 2 items, and I went to checkout. I went to a cash lane where a cashier was.
Yeah.
There was 3 checkout lanes, but like your dad said, I don't work here.
Yeah.
Bring the stuff up.
Well, also, they should bring back the express lane.
And if I'm going to ring myself out, you're going to have to give me a 15 to 20% discount. I'm not
Exactly.
doing it for free.
Exactly.
What else? What else you want me to do?
tell you what,
want me to mop the floor while I'm here? Get out of here!
Give me a 15 or 20% discount. I'll be glad to show you my receipt on the way out.
Yeah, I won't even get irritated.
Right.
Going back to the rules issue, did they manually change, formally change the
No.
rules?
The way that they do this is, number one, if you have boring fights and you lose a fight, you're gone. So wrestlers know if they just take somebody down and just lay on top of them, they have a very small margin of error before they're booted out.
Yeah.
But it's the bonuses. The fight of the nights tend to go to stand-up fights, and I've seen some stand-up fights that I didn't think that the people were that wasn't that high quality of a fight.
Yeah.
You could have seen that on a tough man competition in the 90s. What I saw, but that would get a bonus.
Watch the freaking.
So what you're doing, right? What you're doing is you're encouraging people. Oh, well, they're giving bonuses for the stand-ups. So if I stand up and knock somebody out, I'm going to make more money than if I take them down and tap them.
Right.
So
that's
because it's more exciting to the casual fan is to see somebody get their.
And they do have a submission of the night bonus. Without sitting there and looking at every single card over the last year, it seems to me that most of the bonuses now for fight of the night and that stuff is going for stand-up brawls, whether there was a lot of quality or technique used or not.
I have a UFC question. You said you don't like a lot of the fighters anymore. Do you still like Conor McGregor, considering you tried to get me to name my son? He goes, because I told you I was naming him Conor. He goes, you should make his middle name McGregor. And I said, I am not doing that.
No. What I said was,
make it Conor McGregor.
Are you going to spell it the Irish way, CONOR, and you added the extra N?
Yes.
Conor Matthew is fine. I had no issue with that.
Yeah. Well, at the time, you're like, you should name him Conor McGregor, and I said, I am not doing that. I am not having Conor McGregor's in my name.
So the reason I ask that is because I am concerned if they're doing that type of stuff, UFC is going to go the way of the dodo bird, because
I don't think it will.
You look at judo, and they took down the leg takedowns because they were scared of wrestling guys coming in and sweeping.
They're not doing anything that bad.
Yeah.
They're not doing the things that Taekwondo and Judo have done to try to keep the sports in the Olympics.
Taekwondo is doing the bonus points, though, for spin kicks and that crap, and head kicks, even though...
Because it's so convoluted, nobody understands it.
Right, I hated officiating for it.
I've sparred. A spin kick, not viable.
No. So the way they have it now...
It's just like talking.
If you kick to the body, it's 2 points, head it's 3 points.
Yeah.
And then if you do a spin kick to the body, it's 4 points, and a spin kick to the head, it's 5.
Repeat.
And judges have to keep track of that.
Yeah.
Which is cutting down how many people can judge, which is also cutting down how many people want to compete.
Do they want the audience to just see a kid get his back kicked out? So
the problem is, so most of the time when you're watching Olympic Taekwondo, you'll see, in a 2-minute match, you'll see 20 seconds worth of action, number one. Yeah. Because they just sit there and look at each other and wait for the counter.
Across 2-minute matches if it's black belt, correct?
Right. Yeah. But in that 20 seconds, they may see 5 kicks land.
Yeah.
But the score is 2-1. Mm-hmm. So people don't understand that at all. Mm-hmm. So that, what do they think in the WT? Oh! So it used to be WTF, World Taekwondo Federation, but they got tired of all the little jokes that people were making, so now it's WT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so, but they think, oh, we've got to increase the scoring.
WTF.
So this is so convoluted with this electronic scoring and all this other stuff. It's just ruining the sport. And
I forgot
to
about
score,
the Kogus makes it so you can't get side kick or back kick.
Right. But,
or side
well,
kick,
they're trying to fix
kick.
that now because they're putting a sensor in the heel, which
good.
they used to not have. But the problem also is
front snap.
No sidekick that wouldn't count initially with the initial equipment.
I thought you could do kick, though.
There was no sensor on the bottom of. You can do the kick. It doesn't mean
so
they're
you
going to
could
score
only
it.
do roundhouse kick to even get points.
No, there was another kick you could land that would count, but that was the first screw up. It was first generation equipment. So now there's a sensor in the heel or the bottom of the foot or whatever that's supposed to pick that up, and all of that stuff should count now. But
Papa, I'm hungry.
Well, you're going to have to wait, baby, because we're going to do a lot more talking than this.
Yeah, don't worry, baby. It'll be over in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get you some food, though. And so now that's fixed, but some of the times to get the kicks to score the way they should be doing, you're throwing things biometrically incorrect. And I'm seeing the way they're doing so always the outside crescent kick has always been taught, and we've always done it, side of the foot. And the side of the foot is a viable... If you can do the textbook side kick, which I cannot, my hip doesn't turn that way, so I kick with the heel when I do heel bottom of the foot. when I do a side kick. The textbook way is actually with the blade of the foot. So the blade of the foot has always been a legal target area, something that we've taught, and that's the way that always was. Now they're teaching to do the outside crescent almost like a corkscrew axe kick.
No.
With the bottom of the foot, which is super biometrically incorrect. And I'm watching them, and I've said 3 or 4 times now, you're destroying hips doing that way.
And knees, I would think.
I said, you got to quit doing it like that and do it with the side of the foot. And I just keep getting argued, that's not the way we do it anymore. I said, well, I'll tell you what, people all like to go out and play pickleball too, but now that the orthopedic surgeons are making a fortune on the knees and hips that are being destroyed in that game, you're going to have the same thing in Taekwondo. After you have enough hips and knees destroyed, they'll realize, oh, this was stupid. We shouldn't have done it this way. But guess what? The fighters' knees and hips are still screwed up.
And 13 is full contact. Like, once you
Yes.
can get to knockout rules. So that means you're going to be having teenagers who are having bad knees and hips.
Yep.
Yeah, that means if I want to spar gun, I got to do Olympic.
That's why Sean...
Bad knees, bad hips, raging hormones. My God.
That's why Sean stopped officiating and coaching.
Yeah.
Because he said what we're doing is... Because he's had his hip replaced.
Yeah.
What we're doing is biometrically or biomechanically incorrect, and we are going to be destroying kids. Teenagers and 20-year-olds, we're going to be having hips replaced in the late 20s and early 30s from what we're doing. And he quit refereeing and coaching.
I fractured a disc in my back. That sucks. Knees and backs you do not want to mess up, because once you mess those up, they don't really...
And there's so much limited that you can do for spinal injuries, neck and back.
Yeah.
You know, we know people that have had the back fusion and neck fusion. It really hadn't helped them at all. It deals with the pain.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing it deals with. They had no more mobility. They were, you know, a lot of times worse off.
But I've always heard, like, if you mess up your knee or your back, you're going to be suffering. Hips I've never heard, like, too much horrible about, but...
Taekwondo's really bad on the hips. Well, our
Grandmaster
has had both of hers replaced. Sean has had at least one replaced, maybe 2. He's younger than I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm falling a little bit out of love with it, and I don't know if I'm going to keep following it or not. I had quit following wrestling completely until we started doing the podcast again, and I have to admit the modern product still leaves me a little flat.
I'd say for the most part, you're just watching it for business at this point.
It's so I could speak intelligently on what's going on today. One of the things is the wrestling that Uncle Dan and I grew up on, and the wrestling today is so different. It's almost like a completely different...
Yeah, as I was saying,
And
watching that match, they don't oversell crap in the old days. They actually know what they're doing. It's obvious to lower production and whatever. Like, it's not just the age of
that was Memphis.
Stuff, like,
that was from a Memphis
that's what I'm saying.
studio
It's
in the
not
80s.
just that. Like, it's obvious there's lower production. The fighters don't look quite as physique as they do, like, later on. But the fights are a lot better.
Yeah.
And they sell everything more.
So, before we get into this episode's history topic, I wanted to touch on, I think I might have told Dan, I'm not sure if I told you guys or not, but I was out, it was a couple weekends ago, so it was like today, all of a sudden it had gone from, yesterday I'm wearing shirt sleeves, this morning it's colder than a well digger shovel.
Yeah,
So,
Midwest.
but Sunday morning's leg day, so I'm outside with shorts and a jacket on, scraping the frost off my windows. And I'm on the passenger side.
Oh.
And, yeah, I must have told Uncle Dan this story.
Oh, is this the dog?
Oh, yeah, you told
Thanks for ruining the punchline there.
Just edit it out. Good Lord.
So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I feel something sniffing the back of my leg.
Yeah.
And I look down, and all I see is this big head of black fur. And in my mind, I went, holy crap, a black bear snuck up behind me. So I jumped like 3 feet to the right, and it turned out it was Ruby, the neighbor German Shepherd, who's mostly black. She got a little blonde hair. She jumps 3 feet the other way, and I realized it's Ruby. I'm like, God bless it, Ruby, you scared me to death. And she was just like, I'm like, come here, because she's a friendly girl. That the one next door probably I would have known that he was there when he bit me, but it just Ruby.
Scout.
Yeah, no. Scout's a sweetie. There's a German Shepherd on the other side of us.
And
now.
Scout's not a German Shepherd. I think that's like a. I actually don't remember what that breed was.
But she's a sweetheart. She's like Ruby is. But yeah, I feel something sniffing the back of my leg. I'm like, I look down and all I see is this big head of black hair.
Yeah.
And I mean, usually we don't have black bears in our area this time of year. But it's possible because as the population gets bigger, we will eventually have a population out where we're at. But
Yeah.
Well, I think they said in this area they harvested 12 black bears this year.
usually that's Southwest Missouri. They harvest any up here?
Yes, they started tracking it up here now.
So it could have been, but that's why I normally don't hike in May and June because that's when the young males come up.
Yeah.
But that also reminds me of a story, and this is for all the people that doubted me in the '80s. You were freaking wrong. So, and I'm 12.
I need some water, Papa.
What are you giggling about?
I already know what it is. Go ahead.
There you go, buddy. Have a drink.
Okay.
I didn't remember telling you this story.
You've said it several times.
Oh, well, it does
Ow.
still piss me off. So, it's about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it's dark, and it's springish, so it might be even after 9. But
Yeah.
I was out in the back seat
Here it goes.
of one of my sister's friend's car with this young lady having a discussion about the spin the bottle game we just had played a few minutes ago. And before you
Right.
get clenched, I was 12 and I was not your Grandpa Ernie. So it wouldn't qualify for much more than a discussion.
Dad, we've had weirder talks.
So, but I'm sitting in the back seat and she's got her head on my shoulder and we are chatting.
Different one.
Yeah, I'll find you a different one. And I'm looking out the front window. Well, she's not. And I see this frickin' black bear come ambling down the alley. Little male.
Yeah.
Because even then I could tell, oh, that's not a very big bear. And so she doesn't see it, but she doesn't think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
That one.
And so as soon as my sister Vicky, who, God love her, she helped keep my sanity when I was a kid, so I'm not saying anything bad about my sister Vicky. And her friend come out, they get in the front seat. I tell them, you guys missed it. There was just a little small black bear running down this alley. And so what do you think they said? You city boy, you don't know a black bear from a big sheepdog. That was just some big dog from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, I know the difference between a dog and a bear. Number two, I've been to the St. Louis Zoo, and I've seen just about every variety of bear there is multiple times. How many bears have you seen? I'm telling you, that was a small black bear that ran down the alley.
Right.
They're like, city boy, you don't know nothing. Well, guess what? The Department of Natural Resources didn't get that memo because there have been black bear sightings in southeast Missouri starting in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So I did see a little small black bear go running down the alley. I was not hallucinating, and it wasn't a freaking sheepdog.
So I will say, I've heard this story multiple times. I did not hear the spin the bottle first. That's the only thing
Well,
you left
I
out.
probably left that out,
Oh, yeah.
but it wasn't much of a story, son, believe me.
Damn.
I'm imagining, like, knowing you.
My romantic exploits as a 12-year-old were nothing to write home about, all right? As I said,
Really?
I was not your Grandpa Ernie.
Oh.
As your grandpa used to tell me all the time, you're the only son I'll ever have. Well, that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that why you haven't done a lot of 23andMe? Or
Well, it wouldn't pop up for me, but my
Yeah.
Gail and Tracy, I've encouraged them not to do that because I'm like, we probably got brothers and sisters running all over South St. Louis.
Possibly.
When I would go down to the tavern picnics, I'd be doing the barbecue with Dad's friends, and there were two. His friend Kenny had two younger sons. They were older than me. I think Kenny Jr. was like 18, so he'd have been 6 years older than me. And Daryl was in his early 20s, so he was about 10 years older than I was. And they told me, man, when we were kids, we wanted to be your dad because he had all the women. He said then he met your mom and became this settled down family man. It's like night and day.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had all wanted to be your grandpa.
Dang.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I never had, or fortunately, depending on your outlook and who you were, I never had any of those things to brag about as a youth.
And one funny story about Ernie though is, and I guess him being a ladies' man and stuff. That's why he would fall asleep at the wrestling matches. There'd be 7,000 people. Go David, go! Go David, go!
Yeah.
And Ernie's.
Yeah, there was 20,000 the time he took the three of us because we went to the arena.
Oh yeah.
Papa,
And
we
he was-
gonna go soon.
Nope.
No.
I have not even got into the history topic yet, big man.
Why don't you try playing your game, buddy?
I don't want
Gotta
to.
play some Harvest Moon.
I don't want
We haven't even really got into the good stuff yet.
Yeah.
Are we boring you?
to. That's what we go.
Oh, it's okay, buddy. We'll get into the history.
Yeah. You didn't think that Culver's meal was going to cost you so much, did you?
All right.
So, what I wanted to talk about this week, we had talked about, was when they decided to add the Mass Marvel to the fall version of the 1915 wrestling tournament. Why did they go with the Northeastern wrestler, which helped lead to the identity of the Mass Marvel? Why didn't they go with somebody from the Midwest or something like that?
No.
And there were a couple of reasons. But first of all, they didn't know that they were going to need a gimmick to save the fall tournament because the spring tournament had done so well, and they didn't really have any gimmicks. Most of the matches were contests.
Yeah.
Few works, but most of them were contests. For the fall tournament, because the spring tournament had ended so anticlimactically with the draw between Aberg and Vladek Zabisco, Stanislaus' younger brother. Vladek Zabisco unfortunately had the distinction of being the other Zabisco. A good wrestler, but not nearly on the level of his older brother. And so Rockman, who was a promoter from Europe, and where he eventually returned, decides to take a partner for the fall tournament, who is Jack Curley. And Jack Curley is one of the most famous promoters in wrestling history. He was the promoter in New York till his passing in 1937. At the time of this tournament, 1915, he was just getting established in New York. The biggest event he had been involved with before this was the second Gotch Hackenschmidt match in 1911. And he was the one that Hackenschmidt accused of not paying off what he was owed for that match and all of that. So Rockman takes him on as a partner, and they decide to add catch wrestling into the tournament because while it was a big success in the spring doing Greco-Roman only matches, they were worried the fans were going to lose interest. And the fans did lose interest. Whether it was the Greco-Roman, the fact that they had that inclusive match to settle the spring tournament, or a number of things. The Manhattan Opera House held 6,000 people, I believe, and they were filling that thing every night in the spring. They couldn't draw a good half a house in the fall. So they do a few things. They add catch wrestling. They get a guy named Ed Strangler Lewis to come from the South and join in the tournament. And this is where Ed Strangler Lewis really arrives on the national scene, is at this tournament in New York.
I'm so hungry.
I know, buddy. It's tough.
Watch a show.
Maybe I'll make you some hot dogs for lunch. How's that sound?
No.
No.
Oh, well.
Pizza?
What?
All right, pizza it is.
No cheese pizza for dinner. What about McDonald's? Only McDonald's French fries.
We'll have to see about that. We'll have to consult the podcast budget. I don't know that we could spare the money after we sunk it all into this $1 million studio.
Oh, yeah. And the Culvers used to bribe you to get here.
Yeah.
And we had to put in the new boom mics.
Yeah.
For all to accommodate us all.
Oh, yeah.
So, they, even with adding the catch wrestling, Ed Strangler Lewis, doing the other things, they're still not generating very much interest. So they came up with this idea, and this idea was the first masked wrestler in the history of the United States, the Masked Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But you need somebody to play the Masked Marvel.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, you would have gone to the Midwest outside of the area and got somebody.
That's what WCCW should have done. You know what I'm alluding to.
Yeah. Got somebody else to play Lance Von Erich.
Yeah.
But they can't do that for a couple of reasons. Number one is Aberg has already challenged Frank Gotch, who was trained by Martin Farmer Burns, who's part of Martin Farmer Burns' group, if such a thing exists, because he's retired at this time. But Martin Farmer Burns' group definitely exists.
Yeah.
And Gotch was challenged by Aberg for $10,000. That match will never happen. And the reason that match would have never happened was Aberg was never going to wrestle Gotch in catch wrestling. And Gotch would have never agreed to wrestle Aberg in Greco-Roman. Aberg would only wrestle people Greco-Roman style. So that match really wasn't going to happen, but they had kept putting this $10,000 challenge in the newspaper, which was irritating Gotch, and Gotch was sick of everybody challenging him. So they had come up with a plan for the summer of 1915 where Gotch was going to drop his championship to Joe Stecker and go off in retirement. He would have been defeated, so there was really no glory at that time. If Stecker beat Gotch, to beat Gotch after that, Stecker had already done it. And that's what Gotch wanted. Gotch wanted to end all these challenges. Well, what happened was Gotch was in a training match with Bobby Manigoff Sr. and broke his ankle. And that put that match. But fans accepted Stecker as a world champion anyway. And that's why getting somebody from the Midwest was going to be impossible, because Burns' group was aligned with Stecker and was working with Stecker to replace Gotch. Anybody that would have left Burns' troop to go to New York in this rival tournament that was also trying to replace Gotch would have been seen as a traitor. So now you're relying on Jack Curley, who no wrestler who had brains in his head would have relied on Jack Curley to keep him employed after this tournament was over. The other thing was they decided to add this wrestler at the end of November. The tournament started in October. They only had like 4 or 5 weeks left of the tournament. So to get somebody on a train...
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I know you are. To get somebody on a train from the Midwest and to get them there in time to set all this up was going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
They're already going to be here all night, or no?
If you keep talking, yeah.
No,
Making
we're
a
not
lot of
going to
work
be
to edit
here.
out.
No.
Do what?
He's making a lot of work to edit out.
I'm not editing any of this stuff out. This is the joys of being a grandfather. You have spontaneous utterances you have to deal with. So. Or you say things you shouldn't in front of them, and they ask you what those mean, and you're like, "Oh, that's not something you want."
Speaking of, you're gonna have to cut this out. I wanted to share it with you guys because my cat went up to Christina the other night and bit her, and she goes, "Dick," and kind of goes, "Dick." I went, okay. All right, let's calm down.
Dick.
Hey, no.
You definitely don't want to be saying that.
I didn't know.
Now I know you didn't know, but don't.
Yeah, the reason
That's
it's
not a
funny
word.
is because you're not supposed
Yeah,
to say
you don't
it.
want to be saying that. Okay.
And when it comes out of the...
I'm going to tell Christina she got both of them.
Yeah.
Cows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without skipping a beat, Connor just stood up, pointed with the fury.
So when you get mad at somebody, you don't want to call them a name.
No.
But we'll tell you what to do later, but not on the podcast.
We'll give you more creative insults, don't worry. We'll give you more creative ones.
So they were stuck using a local wrestler, and they used a guy from Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was a part-time wrestler and a full-time railroad detective by the name of Mort Henderson. And because they used a local guy, this actually led to the exposure of who the Masked Marvel was. So the Masked Marvel has several matches. He beats a lot of guys that, once his identity is exposed, it's going to be pretty obvious he couldn't beat. He even wrestles Aberg to a draw in a Greco-Roman match. But a couple of the reporters think they know who he is because he wrestles in the Northeast quite a bit. So one of the New York reporters sits back by the curtain one night to listen to him and the manager talking. And he had a rough match, I think, with Lewis. It might have been one of the first matches he lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the manager asks him, "Are you okay, Mort?" And the reporter had already thought it was Mort Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's convinced. So he publishes in the New York Evening World, I think it was. It wasn't the Times, nor the New York Post. I think it was either the New York Evening World or the Evening Sun. But I think it was the World.
Yeah.
That the mass marvel is Mort Henderson.
Yeah.
Well, that causes a big uproar because how could Mort Henderson, this journeyman wrestler, put on this mask, be the mass marvel, and start wrestling Zbyszko to a draw, wrestling Aberg to a draw?
Yeah.
He didn't wrestle Lewis, beat him, but they were in a catch match, not a Greco match.
Mm-hmm.
Although Henderson was a catch wrestler, but
Yeah.
why ruin a good storyline with a bunch of facts? So
Said CNSBC. Go on.
well, so they now, as soon as that's reported in the newspapers, Aberg is not going to wrestle a draw with the Mass Marvel.
Right.
Matter of fact, the next night, because it came out that evening or that morning, that night he's got a match with Aberg, and Aberg makes him look like a complete clown and crushes him.
Yeah.
But the fans all loved the Masked Marvel and didn't care that he was Mort Henderson and didn't care that he shouldn't be beating these guys. They turn on Aberg, which the whole purpose of this tournament is for the fans to love Aberg and accept him
And put
as
him
Frank
over.
Gotch's replacement. And now the fans are like, this guy's a jerk and just beat up the Masked Marvel for nothing. And so they boo him mercilessly for the remainder of the tournament. The tournament goes on for another week and a half. He wins it. And they boo him mercilessly. But it also exposed the tournament that they're working.
Yeah.
What made it such a success in the spring was the matches were mostly contests. Now, they're working. There's no way he could be competitive with these guys.
Yeah.
And so then after Aberg beats him, Zbyszko beats him, Lewis beats him again. But it kind of worked out for Henderson. So even though it was an exposure and everything, the Mass Marvel was a huge hit. And he was able to wrestle for a couple of years up in the Northeast.
Papa, I'm so hungry.
Oh, buddy. We're going to have to get you a snack.
Yeah.
And so they wrestle in the Northeast for another year or two. And when he decides, okay, I've had enough, I'm going back to the world of railroad detecting, he sells the gimmick to another wrestler for a good pot of money because the Masked Marvel is over. So what happened to the guys that put on the tournament? Rockman goes back, or I always call him Rockman. It's Rachmann. And he was, so it could be Roshman, it could be Rockman, it could
Depending
be
on what part of
Ratchman.
Germany you come from.
Exactly. But he goes back to Germany. Or he goes back to Europe somewhere. I'm not sure if he went back to Germany. Aberg stays in the United States for another year wrestling for Jack Curley and despising him, and Curley despising him. They end up suing each other, and it comes out in court that he admits that he worked a few matches for Curley until he realized how the American public hated that and quit working matches again. And then he goes back to Europe too, and he dies at the end of the... he dies in 21 during the Russian Civil War. Him and Lurich, who's his trainer.
Yeah.
So the whole thing that the tournament was meant to do failed. Didn't get Aberg over, didn't get him accepted as world champion.
Was
by the
Tony
public.
Khan in charge of this?
Looking this, you'd have thought. But it made a huge star out of the Mass Marvel. The one thing that they had no intention of going into it in the spring, they didn't even have the idea for the Mass Marvel until the fall tournament was going to see.
Right.
Was the most successful thing. Well, that and Lewis becoming a national name.
Yeah.
He was already a national name in the Midwest and the South, but he really became a big star in New York after the 1915 tournament.
Yeah.
So, and Aberg refused to wrestle Lewis in a catch match because he knew he would lose.
I was going to say because he knew he'd get his rear end whooped.
He wrestled Lewis in a Greco match, and he beat Lewis like he beat everybody else.
Lewis 316 says, I just put a stranglehold on you.
Yeah. or a toe hold or whatever else
Right.
he wanted to put on him.
Yeah.
Because that's why Zbyszko lost that first match with Gotch, and that's why Gotch never wanted to mess with him again, was because he was so unfamiliar with catch wrestling. He was still primarily a Greco guy.
Yeah.
And he had 2 catch wrestlers with him, and he was training all the time to get better at catch wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Once Gotch beat him, Gotch is like, nothing good's going to come out of this. He's only going to get better at catch wrestling, and he might actually beat me next time, so I'm just not going to give him the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is why they went with a local wrestler. That's why it exposed their business. But it made a big star of the Mass Marvel. So
Yeah.
Too bad that didn't work in WCCW. Because I don't think Lance Von Erich ever became a big star.
he did not. He did not.
Oh yeah, did you see that they're doing that movie about the Von Erichs?
Oh, yeah.
soon?
Iron Claw comes out the 22nd.
Yep.
I don't know about Zac Efron being one of the Von Erichs. That's just kind of...
He's not the worst. There are a lot of other Disney stars who took a worse turn.
Who is Zac Efron?
He was that
High
main
School
star.
Musical.
One of the
Who
guys
is Zac
Kate,
Efron?
One of the guys Kate fawned over when she was in high school.
Yeah.
Okay,
Some
that
Disney special.
that isn't narrowing it down for me.
Okay, not Joe Jonas. How's that? Not one of the Jonas brothers.
Okay, who are the Jonas Brothers?
You're gonna be here a while, though.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, honestly,
Almost done.
I'd be willing to see
We're
it.
getting there.
I tell you what. Well,
We've
then
got the
get with
review
me and
to
your
do,
dad
and
because
then we're
when it
done.
comes out, we're going to see it. So if you guys want to see it too, we can all head out one
Sure.
time together and see it, and then we can have a. Because I think we're going to review it, aren't we?
I think we were going to review it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the
So-
first match you ever had
Because-
me watch was the Von Erich one.
Well, that's because when I became a fan, the Von Erichs were big in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite wrestlers in St. Louis were Ted DiBiase, David Von Erich, and later Kerry. I always thought Kerry had the best physique, and he's somebody you'd want to be built like, but I thought if you were a wrestler, you'd want to wrestle like DiBiase
And he
or
bore
David
an
Von Erich.
uncanny resemblance to Peter Frampton.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it was pretty accurate. Kerry Von Erich had a fantastic physique, but they used to call him Old Horseface.
Oh,
Because from
he had cool nicknames back then, you know? Oh, that's Old Horse Face.
that's what the heels called him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was not quite the handsome, dashing guy from the neck up that you would have wanted if you were...
Horses would come up to him and say, "Why the long face?"
That's why the wrestlers started wearing masks. They couldn't take the teasing, man.
They were pretty rough. That was a rough business back in the 70s. The guys today
Yeah.
who seem to be pretty sensitive would have had a very, very difficult time. Impossible, really.
Could you imagine if somebody would have said something like that to Brody?
Right. That's what we got to have them watch is Brody versus Blackwell from AWA. Or
Oh
something
yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
I just remember you telling me about that guy who's shorter than me being on WWE or whatever, and I'm like, that guy would not even last a single minute. Because they pretty much went for
Gargano.
big, tough guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Johnny Gargano.
It's like, you have to work to be
I
smaller than
was
me.
too small because I wasn't over 6 foot.
Yeah.
For,
That's what I mean. They always went for those big freaking guys that were all super tough.
It's a little off topic, but I was thinking about it because, Trey, I don't think... Has Dad had you watch a lot of wrestling stuff?
Not a ton.
Okay, so what I find particularly entertaining about wrestling is depending on which era you're in, you could get anything. I watched the wrong WrestleMania, and it opened with a guy pissing in someone's coffee cup on a desk.
oh, was that Jericho and Regal?
Yes, that was the opening. I watched the wrong one.
That was the Attitude Era.
That's what it opened up with.
I see. Yeah, that is very different from...
I wanted to text Dad and be like, is this the right one you wanted me to watch? Because it was just what was it, like a Rock?
Wasn't it? I wanted you to watch Stone Cold versus Bret Hart in the submission match where they had the switch.
I think you wanted me to watch, like, Stone Cold versus The Rock, if they ever did it. I just remember you told me The Rock was in it. So I'm like, okay, I'll find Mr. Dwayne. And then it opened up with that, and maybe it gets better. We'll keep watching.
Yeah, they didn't do very much peeing in coffee cups during the 80s.
I didn't think so, no. It might be a little too rough for the audience.
I was gonna say they didn't. You know, that was the nice thing about wrestling back in the '80s is you had to wait for a Starcade our
Yeah.
Great American Bash.
Yeah.
They weren't on
Before you
every
got-
month.
Before you got some of these great matches, some of these, but now it's like me and your dad both agree. If we ever see another ladder match, it'll be too soon,
Right. And
because they've been done to death.
right. The constantly they gimmick everything up to no flipping it. And why you watch wrestling today is different. You could suspend disbelief in the 80s and 90s, but starting in about the early 2000s, it was just too ha-ha. You couldn't really suspend belief anymore.
Yeah.
So you couldn't watch it as an athletic competition. To this day, I can't watch it as an athletic competition. It's not like...
Well, these days they oversell the hits and everything. It looks like a
Right.
cartoon
It
character.
looks ridiculous. Or they don't sell it at all. You get hit with something. Okay, we just hit him with a nuclear rocket, and he gets up and punches the guy in the face. What is that? What would have killed him? He would be laying there dead in the 90s. They would have had to come out there and pick him up, and you couldn't have seen him for like 6 months until he came back as his cousin Joe, who was going to avenge the guy that was killed. Today, that's just like, oh, that's a transition spot.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do a superplex off the top rope into a Canadian destroyer, and that's to set up something else.
Well, remember when Jake's DDT was the be all end all, and now you get a DDT in the ring and the guy gets right back up. It's like, wait a minute.
So I will clean this up, but that Canadian destroyer, as my dad would have said, it's like two monkeys fornicating with a football.
Right.
You can't tell who's doing what to whom. Those and that's the kind of moves you see nowadays.
I'm just waiting for wrestling to get to the
I didn't
point
say it the
where,
way your grandpa said it. But.
Well,
Yeah, no, I know. You said it when we were doing cane practice that one night. Anyway, Kill, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just waiting for them to step it up. Bomb defusal matches.
Oh,
Where they have to defuse a live bomb in the middle of the ring.
Oh, you've not lived until you've seen the invisible hand grenade in a match.
I'm sorry, though. What?
They have an invisible hand grenade. They pull the pin and throw it, and all the idiots in the ring take a frickin' bump. And now you know why I didn't watch it from like 2007 or 8 until 2016 or 2017.
See, I was gonna make a joke about doing chess
Sure, what do you
boxing,
want to ask
but
me?
chess WWE.
Well,
But I honestly think that I did
and
not
with
think
that.
it would be possible to just top the stupid. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that does it.
Troy, you mentioned cartoons. That is literally Looney Tunes.
Coffee.
yeah.
It's not even Looney
that's
Tunes. That's just miming.
copy
Well, it's
right
like
now.
running through a tunnel, and then the guy following you behind hits the wall.
See
There's
all that?
painted
What's
on
next?
it.
The dude
That's
does the
everybody
invisible
talking.
wall, and the guy runs face first into it.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I'm trapped in a box. You can't put me
Well,
in a
it
pin.
is. You guys have interesting perspectives on it because you were never wrestling fans. You never watched it. So it was like when I was playing around with him and saying I'm going to smarten up these marks.
Yeah.
Marks is what they used to call the fans. So your uncle and I would have been marks in the 80s, and it's a derogatory term. A lot of people say no, it's just been fans. No, it's a derogatory term.
Yeah.
And originally it comes from gambling cons or
Yeah.
fraud cons and stuff like that. The mark is the person who is the fool that falls for whatever you're trying to come up with.
Like if me and
And
your
so-
dad were wrestling, who's going to get the first fall?
Yeah.
And then if everybody bet on me, then
Yeah.
he'd get the right.
Exactly. And that's what they used to
Yeah.
do when they first started working. A lot of their working was because of gambling schemes and stuff and the marks. And I think that that's where the term probably came for. But when you're working, you're also fooling people. So you can be calling marks like that too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what.
And then they started calling people smart marks. They were people that were smart to the business and would get stuff. So a lot of the readers of the Wrestling Observer and all of that were the smart marks of the smart fans, because they don't use that term as much anymore, because some people do realize, no, that's a derogatory term.
I was saying
Yeah.
the only time he and I think have heard it just naturally was in Skyrim dialogue of all things.
Well, and the carnival midways when they would come to town,
Yeah.
the carnies would call all the tourists and the town folk marks because
And-
we're going to take their money on these.
And pro
cricket
wrestling
games.
has carnival background. A lot of the pro wrestling got started initially in carnival athletic shows. So it can also come from that too.
Yeah.
But it was
Softball
definitely
so-
not a
throw
complimentary
it.
term when it first
Yeah.
came out.
No.
So when it arches, it doesn't
And
bounce so hard.
if I'm a wrestler in the 70s or 80s, I'm wary of the
I
marks
got
because a lot of them did truly
I got banned
believe.
from that game.
So like Jim Cornette said, in the Mid-South, they tried to kill him.
Yeah.
You know, they may want to try one of the wrestlers, but they figured that would probably be a losing proposition. But I'd kill that manager.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Guy can send him out on the ring.
Yeah. So, you know, you had to be very, very careful. Nobody has that kind of heat. Although I did, Jim Cornette said something hilarious. So if you don't listen to the, if you got sensitive ears, you don't want to listen to the experience. Or the
Translation:
drive-thru.
if you don't like cursing, foul language, and horrifyingly grotesque descriptions of things, don't watch it or don't listen to it.
But if you like funny stuff and you like wrestling history, those are the podcasts to listen to. But they were talking about how Moxley walks through the fans all the time.
Oh, yeah,
at AEW. He goes, "This is going to be the first guy knifed in modern history, not because he's got heat, just because they're sick of this idiot walking through the fans. They're sick of him coming straight through there like he's tough."
Watch out, Tony Khan will try and book it. Just give some rando a knife. Here, stab him when he comes through.
I was doing my 1,000+ rep leg workout this morning, laughing my butt off, and I'm sure they were like, "Oh, this guy, he's worked out so hard, he's lost his mind." But no, when he said that I lost it, be the first guy knifed just for walking through the crowd and pissing people off.
Yeah.
Oh my lord!
But happens.
So speaking of heat,
Yes.
we did review a match today. Unfortunately, it was before you got here, but
Okay.
we watched Jerry Lawler versus Dutch Mantel.
Because
Okay.
we're kind of, I don't know, Dutch Mantel might be out of the hospital by the time you hear this.
Hopefully
might
he
not be.
is.
Yeah. Because his podcast, Storytime with Dutch Mantel, is probably my second favorite podcast.
Yeah, he is hilarious. He's got some great stories.
Uh-huh.
And he was a true heel. When I was a kid, he was one of the guys that could generate heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They called him Dirty Dutch Mantel for a reason. And he was a longtime booker in Puerto Rico.
And it's not because he went to college and was an academic.
Man, I miss old timey sports names. Big Wayne Hayden. This
Big
guy.
Wayne Munn,
Big
Big Wayne Munn.
Dirty Dutch Mantel.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Big
wow.
Curly.
Joseph Toots Mont, I don't think passes the name test. But apparently the Toots was because he had small feet. And they used to talk about his shoes and his small tootsies. And that's where
That's a
Toots
weird
was.
way to get
It
in
certainly
there.
is.
how about Plowboy?
Yeah, Plowboy Frazier.
That was a
I think if I was standing there and somebody was saying, "Hey, we're going to call you Toots," you guys playing a rib.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
I also like it whenever they pass on like titles like Nature Boy. That just kind of gets passed on from.
Well, you know, and that was the thing, because you had Nature Boy Buddy Landell, you had Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, the original.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
what is a Nature Boy exactly? Is that some guy that likes to run around nude in the forest, or what?
Well, I'll tell you, in a Bugs Bunny cartoon before Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, it was kind of an insult. Mm-hmm. Remember the guy that used to dance around the forest?
Oh yeah,
And Bugs Bunny was like, "Nature Boy."
yeah.
So it was a bit of an insult, but you know they
They all had blonde flowing hair and
arrogant, and 'cause I remember Buddy Landell before he was Nature Boy, his hair was black.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Chick Donovan didn't pick up the moniker of Nature Boy along the way
Yeah.
somewhere around.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So Trey, since you are not a wrestling fan, what did you think of the Jerry Lawler Dutch Mandel match?
Honestly, one of the more believable fights that I have seen on the list. Again, it comes from that era of they actually could sell things, so it wasn't
Let's
cartooning
listen
over
to your
the top.
uncle's view on this.
Also, it was interesting to see the referee actually try to stop the chair hits and everything, and what was it, a pile driver on the concrete?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The
That's
referee.
something that doesn't happen now. Now the referee's like, "Oh, let me help you with that."
We are up to a minute or an hour though.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Hour and 4 minutes.
For some reason, this one wasn't as painful as that last one. I'm not quite so sure why.
Wow, that's rude. Look.
That last podcast with the three of you on there, that was like herding cats, temperamental cats who didn't want to be herded.
Oh,
Papa.
look. We didn't go off on as many rants today. It's early in the morning. We're not ready.
Well, maybe we're more in a festive mood. It's almost Christmas time. And
Can't be making...
Yeah, nobody noticed my decoration.
the one? The one?
It's Yukon Cornelius is up there on the shelf now. So
Which, I didn't see the 2 inch tall.
2 inches tall.
Looks great.
that's my.
Yep.
Oh wait a minute! Can I say Yukon Cornelius? He's a copyrighted character.
You should be
I
able to
think we can
reference
say
that.
it. If,
Okay.
You just
if you
can't
got
like
him on
sing
your
the
shelf.
songs or like put artwork up and stuff. I mean,
Okay.
Oh, you can sing the songs. You can't play it.
Oh, okay.
You can't play it from the show, but you can sing it.
Right.
Might make all our ears bleed, but
Yeah, I was gonna say if I sing, it'll sound like a piece of glass going through a wood chipper. Let's not.
Yeah.
so did you say that because you want to get this thing over with, or what?
No, I was letting you know because typically you're like, "Where are we?" And then I'll say like an hour 30 minutes. Jeez, oh!
Sometimes Jim Cornette goes on for 4 hours.
Yeah, the day we have a 4-hour podcast,
Uh huh.
we'll tap out
before
Yeah.
anybody else does.
I can't even stream for 4 hours, and it's just playing
No.
video games. I can't even imagine.
Papa, so
Also, you got to imagine that's how that man is 24/7. Then if he can go that long, he just hits
Yeah.
record.
Well, I was saying the other day, I said I talk more on the podcast than I probably do the whole rest of the week combined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and it is nice to know that I don't know if your dad told you or not, but we do have some listeners chiming in now.
Yes,
One guy said
they said we made their drive into work bearable.
Wow.
And I'm like,
I'm so sorry.
And I was thinking, you know, when we were kids, our family had probably given us a couple $100 to shut up.
Yeah.
Look.
Well, we kind of took the piss out of everybody back then.
Yeah, see, now you're directing it on a larger scale, and then everybody gets to laugh with you
And
instead of being
people
laughed
that most people
at.
think need the piss taken out of them.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'll say Vince McMahon and all these other...
I won't say the name of the streaming service.
Which streaming service do we...
Voldemort. The one I'm not allowed to say because you'll go off on a rant.
Oh, you talking about Disney Plus?
I was going to say, begins with D and is...
Yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what... Is weed legal in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
I would think so.
Well, actually, I don't think it is. I think it's
'Cause
decriminalized.
Because as right-wing as it is...
I have no idea. I don't live in Florida. I'm trying to keep up
Well,
on
you know,
the laws.
it's funny
I thought he
because,
said California, and I said,
You got-
oh, yeah.
you know, you got
nice.
northern Florida and you got southern Florida, and you got that middle part where Orlando is. It's kind of like a demilitarized zone in there.
No, literally, when we were down there on vacation for that church trip whenever I was a teenager, we were driving by, and I'm like, God, is the only finished building around here Disney?
Mm-hmm.
As I'm looking around, because it's like, there were one surf shop, if I could speak English, and one McDonald's, and that McDonald's had a 30-minute wait limit. There was nobody around for miles. Like, it took us 30 minutes to get a plastic cup.
Wow.
Everything else was construction, like you said, demilitarized area.
Do the Florida men just live in huts in like the swamplands or something? Like, what the
Yes.
heck?
Yes.
For all of our Florida listeners, may I apologize to you for...
We respect you.
Look,
for
there's
it.
a reason there's a game on the internet
Hey.
to search your birthday followed by Florida man. There's too many stories.
Hey, I won for like Florida.
I like Florida too.
I was actually pretty impressed with the Keys when I was down there.
I'm going to tell you, if I've got to choose between Florida or any of these other sunny destinations, I'll pick Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Look.
take Florida over pretty much.
I
any
like
other
Florida.
ones.
I respect them for it, but that is the twilight zone of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
That is.
I'll tell you what I do like. I'd much prefer the Gulf side of the ocean.
Oh,
than
yeah,
the Atlantic
definitely.
side. Because we've been to both. Swimming in the ocean in November, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But we were on the Gulf side.
Yeah.
The waters are a lot calmer and everything. When we went to the Atlantic side, I was like, man, I feel like a milkshake that's being churned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
the
definitely.
waves over on the Atlantic side are a little bit more aggressive than they are in the Gulf.
I remember me and one of my friends were looking for seashells, and there were pretty much none because they're all just all cracked and shattered.
I doubt it. Now, after I'm done on this podcast, Papa's not going to say anything the whole rest of the day.
This is the type of way
Can
you
you believe that?
smooth glass with.
Also,
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
Papa make you French toast before you left?
Yes.
And it has to be his French toast, not Mimi's French toast.
Right.
His French toast.
What I wasn't.
Oh, you watching The Inspector?
No, I do love Florida, but yeah, no, the craziest stuff I've seen. Me and
He's a
Christina were
real
down there for
funny,
one
right?
weekend,
Yeah.
and I saw 2 people crack their heads
And
open. I'm not even
Oh,
joking.
gosh.
Right as we get off the plane, a lady falls, head
Oh.
cracks open. And then as we're leaving Universal, a lady falls down the escalator and she comes up and her head's cracked. And
Oh.
her little girl is screaming. And I looked at Christina and I said, we need to get the hell out of here.
Now, the one thing that I
Don't
do not
don't
like
give
about...
aid. Don't get. Let's get the hell out of here before we get sucked into this.
Well, everybody was already crowding them. And, like, people
Yeah.
were coming up with medical supplies. And I look at Christina,
God.
we've seen 2 people. We got to get the hell out of here.
Now, one thing that I don't like about Florida,
Yeah.
and your dad feels the same way about this, is the Florida State Seminoles.
The Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, yes.
The Florida Gators. I have nothing against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing against the Dolphins either, other than their boringness.
I thought you were talking about the actual wildlife gators.
No,
the
Florida
team.
Gators.
I knew what he was talking.
I'm like, yeah, just don't mess with them, Dad. You'll be fine.
You said Hurricanes before Gators, right?
Miami Hurricanes.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah.
I knew what he was talking about.
The
just
U.
from that, which was kind of weird. It's shocking that I noticed and you didn't, because you watch sports and I don't.
I don't watch sports.
You watch more than me.
I don't watch any sports. Martial arts. Those are the sports I watch. UFC, stuff like that.
See, I don't even watch that. I
See-
watch it whenever it comes up or whatever. But
The only sport I would willingly like.
So I have 3 children,
Yeah.
and the only one that watches sports, the only one that went with me to Liverpool game is Caitlin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Kate
like
was,
sports
Kate was
too.
the athlete
I know you
for
do.
everything except martial arts.
I'd watch American football.
Well, she came out of.
Soccer's just
She
not my
hadn't
thing.
competed in 4 years and
Yeah, I know.
trained for 3 months and took first place at the tournament in both Olympic and points.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like she hasn't been in it the whole time.
No, but she does work out all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. I was a martial artist. She can't have everything. Okay.
I wasn't saying anything.
No.
I'm not complaining.
You literally just said we don't watch sports.
You don't. But I know a lot of people that don't watch sports.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch a whole lot of television.
I was going to say,
And the
the only
stuff that
reason
I
I
do-
got that antenna up there is for Sundays.
And the stuff that I do watch tends to be esoteric, and most people have no interest in it. So
Oh well.
So would you like to get back to that fight we were discussing before we got kind of railroaded by the timestamp?
Oh yeah, the Dutchman. You were in mid sentence on that.
Yeah, all I was saying is I just found it was interesting, like, because A, they were actually selling everything, B, it looked like a realistic fight, like, there were some things that, like, if you knew, like, there was one specific
was a
hold that
bad
he had on the
choice.
wrist. If you know martial arts, you would be able to call out that there was no pressure on that, but you have to know jiu-jitsu, or at least that specific hold and then, like, how the motors work, but otherwise, you would not know otherwise.
I'm so
So it was actually
hungry.
interesting to see things
We
being
still
sold
just a few
properly
minutes.
instead of like cartoon characters,
And that means we
and
go.
also have a ref that is
Yes, that
behaving
means-
realistically.
Yes, that means we
Yeah.
do, so.
Like I said, I've always enjoyed watching matches with Dutch Mantel and Jerry Lawler in them.
Yeah.
So it was.
I just remember we got to end on something else because you and I disagree on something. Well, we don't disagree.
Mhm.
I agree with some of what you were saying. I just
okay.
have a little different take on it.
All right.
But let's finish this match first.
Well, I was just going to say that I've always enjoyed Dutch Mantel and Jerry Lawler, even though
Yeah.
one's a heel and one's a face.
Yeah.
But my thing I enjoyed mostly about this match is it was done in the studio, and Dutch Mantel gets about 9 feet away from
And
the
I
ring,
always
and then
run
runs
into
along the
one.
ring and punches Jerry Lawler right in the head.
Like,
That's like he would have broke his
this
hand if
guy
he
always
had done that
runs
for
in
real.
trouble, but this guy doesn't, right?
Yep.
So
This
anyway,
guy doesn't.
Yep, judo.
We should not record all of us together this early in the morning. I know it's like 11, it's noon, but still, get us in the evening when we're at our best, okay?
Calvin and I are borderline nocturnal. If you would let us, we would pretty much sleep during the day. So in our defense.
So we were talking the other day. I had heard a podcast where they asked if Dave Meltzer is his integrity has been compromised because of his constant defenses of AEW. And I said they had not really answered that question, but they said Dave Meltzer is not taking money from AEW, which I agree with.
Yeah.
He's got too much journalistic integrity to be taking money to be their shill.
Yeah.
That's the type of wrestling he likes. He's always liked independent wrestling. He was a fan of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So, but what was your answer to what you think his integrity has been compromised?
I said I did not think his integrity has been compromised because when you write a PWI or a Wrestling Observer or any of the other wrestling magazines that is not linked to one organization, you can't really be biased or nobody's going to read your stuff. So I don't think he's being favorable to the AEW, and I don't think it's hurting his integrity as a journalist.
And see, I do think that he has compromised just a bit, but it's not on all the things that everybody else always points out. So they always point out to the star rating.
Yeah.
The star rating is completely subjective and doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So the fact that he gives all these Kenny Omega matches, these ridiculous scores.
Why has he got such a thing for Kenny Omega?
He thinks Omega was the greatest wrestler. He may still think he's the greatest, but he definitely thought he was the greatest wrestler in the 2000s, but nobody knew about him because he was in Japan.
Well, you want to know something? His stuff ain't that great.
No. And it's definitely not that great now because he's been compromised and injured. The stuff I saw him do in 2000s was pretty freaking impressive.
Okay.
It didn't necessarily make sense from our point of view, but it was very impressive looking.
Okay.
That's the kind of stuff he likes, so who cares?
Right.
You know, if I was giving Kenny Omega some stars, he wouldn't be getting 5. He'd be getting a lot lower than that. But I would be giving Bret Hart a lot of his matches 5 or 6. But people might not like Bret's matches, so that's just purely subjective.
But there's a few matches that you've got to give 5 stars to.
Yeah.
Anything with Flair and Steamboat in it.
And 89.
Those were the best matches ever.
That I probably ever saw.
Yeah.
And then the Steamboat and Savage match from WrestleMania 3.
Well, of course, that's the gold standard of it.
But when he defends them constantly going over on a show that should be formatted, that's where I take issue, and I think he's crossing the line because if he was being objective, he would criticize WWE for doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be trying to argue it's the fans' responsibility to know these knuckleheads are going to go over every week.
Right.
And to record. So I think in that regard, he does hurt himself. But the star ratings and the fact that he likes independent wrestling, I don't think that hurts it.
No,
that's just a
all.
subjective opinion. I've said before, I think we prefer WWE over AEW because it's closer to a territory style.
Well, and it makes sense. The stories make sense.
They may be boring.
Yes.
They may talk in ways that grown adults don't talk. But at least it makes sense.
Yes.
And
AEW, I haven't seen one thing that makes sense.
Or that just doesn't stop and then start and then stop with no... It reminds me of watching WCW in the 90s.
Yeah.
Storylines that go nowhere or just stop abruptly for no reason. But I don't think you have to hate one or the other. You can enjoy both. Who cares?
Yeah. You want to watch...
If AEW is your thing, knock yourself out. It doesn't bother me in the least, you know?
And we've covered that, you know. You can like one thing, I can like another thing, and we don't have to hate each other because of it.
I am not a racing enthusiast at all. I'm probably going to have to watch car races because of somebody that's sitting relatively close to me right now. But...
I'm not going to make you watch car race.
No, I wasn't talking about you. Talking about the guy that's like an alarm clock for me every 5 minutes, not telling me he's hungry.
Oh, okay.
I'm hungry.
Right on cue.
Right on cue. Thank you. You like monster trucks?
Can I just have McDonald's only McDonald's 35 for once?
I guess I'm going to have to get you McDonald's French fries for lunch.
And that did not answer the question. That was
No
asked.
cheeseburger, okay, Papa?
Yeah, I won't get you a cheeseburger.
Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you don't have to like all the same things. I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it. I brought you guys up on some very good television, and look at the trash you guys watch today.
You know what, Dad? I really don't want to hear it.
Honestly, the funny thing about that is that you assume I watch television half the time now.
Did you two not start quoting South Park at me?
That was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Look,
That was because I was bored during the pandemic, and I was running it as background while I was playing my games.
I will always say this, because I do enjoy South Park. I enjoy the guys who make it. I think they have funny outlook on life.
Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South Park is that friend that you keep around because he's funny occasionally, but you wouldn't want to take him out in public.
I was going to say, you never know. He's not the friend you want to put on speakerphone.
No, that's South Park. The friend you keep around because he's occasionally funny.
Uh-huh.
You know, I started listening to audiobooks as my background in 2021, and, you know.
I would lump South Park in with American Pie and a bunch of other nonsensical crap that I wouldn't watch.
Family
Waste
Guy,
5
American
minutes.
Dad,
Family Guy,
Simpsons.
yeah. That I wouldn't waste 5 minutes of my life on. But I brought you up on all that good television, and look at what you guys watch nowadays.
Still watch
I
it, Dad.
still think Are You Being Served is my favorite, and then Blackadder, Thin Blue Line.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cartoons I like quite a bit, and anime, but I don't need to reference them here.
Not the whole list, no.
Well, Dad and Uncle Dan probably have no idea what on earth Full Metal
I
Alchemist
don't
is.
have any idea about what half of the stuff you guys have been talking about today is Zac Efron and the Jonas Brothers. Like
See,
I
that
should know who
shocks
they
me
are.
because that's like
Yeah, that was
my generation was
Papa,
like super
can we
like
leave?
the generation of girls was kind of obsessed with those guys, but
If
Moving
I
on.
tried to keep track of all the people that your sister told me,
I don't
oh,
try.
he's so cute. Oh, he's. That's all I would have spent my life doing. I just went, yeah, mm-hmm.
I don't try. It's just they talk so much it gets burned into your head.
Look, I know who they are, and I'm proud, okay?
Never heard of them.
That's fine. They're not worth knowing anyways. But
Honestly, if I could unlearn them, I would be happier.
I just think that
And I guess I'm going to see a movie with at least a couple of them in it.
oh yeah. Like I said, dude, don't do another podcast. I know it's not that early, but still, I'm so low energy. Because I was taking care of Connor while Christina saw her dad today. So I'm low energy.
Yeah, he'll wear you out.
He will, yeah. He would not let me go to the bathroom. He would not.
so he's a
Let
very
me guess you
energetic
did.
young man.
Let me guess you did go to a bathroom.
I did while I heard, Daddy! 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 What? Daddy, I want orange! So yeah, that was my morning. So the jokes aren't coming out as well as they should.
So, gentlemen,
Is that
Yes.
your
any words of
copy?
wisdom for the new year? Any quotes? Anything motivational or?
Don't buy into all the political hate. That's all I'm going to say. It's an election year. You're going to hear a lot of it.
All right, don't buy into the hate.
Here we go again.
Caleb?
Here we go again. After the past 5 years, I went to an adult through all this craziness. At this point, bring it on. Let's go. 2024.
All right, he's ready for the battle.
You
Ken?
know what always amazes me today is you have this cult of personality around all these politicians. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
everybody believed. You couldn't believe a word a politician said. They were all liars.
Well, yeah.
And, I mean, that was drilled into my head when I was a kid, that you just can't believe them. You know, that they're going to tell you whatever they have to do to get elected, and it's the lesser of two evils. That's what my grandpa always used to tell me. Usually you're voting for the lesser of two evils. Today, it's like people look upon these people like they're the savior or whatever. There's
Yeah.
such a cult of personality around them, you know, and it's like, da-da-da.
So, I actually was walking through my store the other day cleaning up bottles, you know, and I noticed someone stickered the wall with a submit to Biden sticker, and I
Whoa.
peeled it off, and I could not tell whose propaganda it was. I couldn't tell if it was Democrat propaganda, vote for Biden, or Republican, submit to Biden.
Yeah.
And I kept finding them throughout my store. Just randomly stickered in different places, submit to Biden, submit to Biden. So...
What really pushed me over the edge on that was like...
And who has the time to do
I
that kind
hope
of stuff?
to God it's a joke,
Right.
but like during the pandemic when there was like... What is the Catholic candle where they have like the saints or like... What are those called again?
The what?
There's like... I think it's a Catholic thing where the candles have like pictures of the saints or Christ or Mary on them.
Yeah.
You're just thinking rituals candles, right?
I don't freaking know. But anyway, they had those. It was like,
It's a tradition in the Catholic Church that you go and light a candle. It could be to a saint. Most of the time it's in remembrance of a loved one or for special occasions. Like, we're in Advent now. It's not unusual for people to...
Advent candles.
Yeah.
There were parody
Yeah.
ones that had political figures like
get
Donald
me
Trump,
down,
Joe
please.
Biden,
Okay,
Anthony Fauci, and all these other guys. I'm like, I hope to God this is like a God tier post because I cannot. I really could not even get into the headspace.
Well, when you've got masks with political figures on them, it's like...
Okay.
This is insane to me, but yeah, there's such a cult of personality around people. It's like they're not saviors. Trust
Yeah,
me,
no.
they're not going to save you.
Look,
And we try to stay away from politics on the podcast because I don't. All you do is offend people either way.
And it's a losing game no matter which side
Yeah.
you go for at this point. It's just which one is going to
Yeah.
lose more.
well, and like you said, Dad, it's like you can't trust anything the politicians say, and like the people who follow them, those are the real like,
And I don't know if it's the internet or what, but it really seems like the 10% of loons on either side is getting bigger. But
Now, if you're
I
listening,
think it's just they're getting more prominent.
Yeah.
They've got a platform, and people tend to listen to that extremism even when they're not extreme.
yeah.
It's that group tends to attract the biggest listenership.
And what I want to say to anybody listening to the podcast who may be a conservative or a liberal, Democrat, Republican, we are almost positively not talking about
Yes.
Yeah.
you because a lot of the people who are the issue are the people who are the loudest.
Yeah.
If you're sitting here listening to a nice wrestling podcast, chances are you're probably not a lunatic
Yeah.
worth ranting about.
Right. Exactly.
So, fringe minorities getting a loud vote. It's sort of like crime statistics are plummeting, but we don't notice because we hear about every crime that happens.
Exactly. That's why I don't watch the news anymore.
Yeah?
I watch the weather, and that's about it. I got to know if I need my coat or an umbrella tomorrow.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't want to hear about murders, wars,
Yeah.
all this ridiculousness that's going on in this
Well,
world.
there's nothing to be gained by giving into fear either.
Exactly.
Well.
Exactly.
But I think that's just what it is, too, is like people are seeing like all these lunatics and like, Jesus, this is actually what they believe. And it's probably not. It's probably just fringe lunatics, but we're connected to everything 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear about a YouTube's downfall from a mile away. Like a YouTuber's downfall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Celebrities getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about it all now, so we think it's everywhere.
Speaking of celebrities hopefully getting in trouble,
Hopefully.
let's send Taylor Swift back on tour someplace so she'll quit showing up at the football games.
I'm so worried that she's going to mess up the tight end.
Yeah, I know.
And
You know what, guys? I know we're cool with offending different people. I don't think we should try the Swifties. I don't think the Swifties are on the plate.
let me tell you, if you spend your whole life following the life of Taylor Swift, you probably ain't listen to this podcast.
Right.
Yeah. But, no, my manager was a Swiftie, and I say that
I'm
with...
sorry to hear that.
I am, too.
Is there a cure for that?
No, but she promised... No, she didn't promise... Sorry, can't speak early. She was bragging that Swifties were able to hack into an airport terminal to spy on her and Harry Styles, and I said, "You are bragging about this?" She said, "Yes."
Who is Harry Styles?
One of those guys from One Direction, that band that Katie listened to all the time. You probably don't remember.
Kayla and we were obsessed with that one.
Hold on.
I'll go ask.
Your daddy's coming.
Hold on. We got to end this podcast, man. You want to go eat?
I swear, Swifties are probably the American variant of K-pop fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like K-pop fans are like really over the top too sometimes.
Oh, and I'll tell you what.
Well, I just want to hear that hit song, "Maybe It's You" by Taylor Swift's ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe all your exes aren't crazy.
Well, you know when she hides inside a popcorn machine to get to the stage.
And they're all grown adults, so I don't care what anybody does.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't care to see it 58 times during a football game. Every time Travis Kelce makes a catch or misses a catch or anything else, we've got to get the reaction shot from the upstairs booth
Yeah.
of them slapping hands or, oh, or who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Listening to the urge.
Do they take Jalen
hospitalized people?
When Jalen Hurts' wife is up in the owner's box, do you get 58 shots of her reactions to everything he does? No.
And the other night, or last week, when the Chiefs played the Packers, Romeo Dobbs is married to Simone Biles. And we saw her, what, once?
Yeah.
Maybe twice that whole game?
Yeah.
Yeah, not every time. Well, of course, you know, it doesn't matter. I was going to say something about it.
So if you're still here after all this time, you found out what a Swiftie is. You may know who Zac Efron and whatever Jonas is.
I really hope you don't upload
Jonas
this.
and the Whale.
I'm going to be honest. I really hope you don't upload this one. This one needs to be shelved.
I got Solomon on the episode. We're going to upload this one.
All right.
Maybe you can edit it all out and just say,
Yeah, happy holidays. 5 seconds. I think the listeners might object to one that short.
They might object to listening to this, too.
So, I think we've said all that needs to be said. So, you guys finished your advice for the new year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. My advice is don't waste your life on bad television, bad books, or bad wrestling. If you see any of those, if a book you're reading is not that good, you don't have to finish it. If the TV show you're watching is not that good, you don't have to finish it. And if the wrestling is not that good, you don't have to watch it. So,
Yeah.
anything Tony Khan books.
You don't have to watch.
That's right.
we need to say something nice about Tony Khan with the new year coming.
He's not a twin.
He looks out for his friends.
And he's not Elon Musk and some of the crazy ideas he has for Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Let's change it to X and make the logo black with a white X on it.
And let's
so
come
it
up
looks
with
like
some of the
something for
most
adults.
idiotic names
Yes.
for any of the apps that you want to have with it as well.
Well, I like, we're going to get rid of the block button. I feel like that, that
Oh, yeah.
Which is illegal.
that wouldn't be on account of people blocking your advertisers, would it, Mr. Ross?
Or blocking you, or blocking the sycophanted idiot that you seem to be a fan of.
Yeah, right.
This is all getting cut. This isn't being uploaded. All right. Well, I guess we will end it for today.
All right.
All right, guys. Take care. Happy holidays and Godspeed in 2004.
Can you say goodbye
24.
and Happy New Year?
Bye and happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank God.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.